If you think organizing your books by color means you have OCD, or that changing your mind often means you're bipolar, you've been lied to. We are living in the golden age of pop psychology. Social media has convinced millions of us that normal human emotions are mental illnesses and that serious, debilitating disorders are just quirky personality traits. But the difference between being stressed out and having an anxiety disorder isn't just semantics. It's a matter of brain chemistry. Believing these myths isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. It minimizes real suffering and stops people from getting the right help. So today, we are stripping away the internet rumors and looking at the hard science. We're debunking 10 of the biggest mental health myths, from what schizophrenia actually is, to the truth about OCD, trauma, and therapy. It's time to unlearn what you think you know about the human mind. Myth 1. Schizophrenia means having multiple personalities. Let's start by clearing up one of the oldest and most persistent confusions in psychology. The idea that schizophrenia involves having multiple people living inside one mind is completely false. This misconception largely comes from the name itself. Schizophrenia translates roughly to split mind, but it refers to a split from reality, not a split in the self. When people talk about distinct identities or alters, they are actually describing dissociative identity disorder, or DID. Schizophrenia is entirely different. It is a psychotic disorder characterized by hallucinations, like hearing voices, and delusions, such as believing the government is tracking you. It involves cognitive disorganization, not a fracturing of the personality. Confusing these two conditions stigmatizes both and prevents people from understanding the specific treatment each requires. Myth 2. Being a neat freak means you have OCD. We have to stop using OCD as an adjective for people who just like a tidy desk. Obsessive-compulsive disorder is not a personality quirk, it is a debilitating anxiety disorder. While it is true that some people with OCD have a contamination obsession that leads to cleaning, that is only one specific subset of the condition. The O stands for obsessions, unwanted, intrusive, and distressing thoughts that barge into your head. The C stands for compulsions, the rituals you perform to silence those thoughts. For many sufferers, this has nothing to do with cleanliness. It could be checking a lock 50 times because you're terrified your family will die if you don't, or counting steps to prevent a vague calamity. If you organize your books by color because it brings you joy, you're organized. If you do it because you're terrified of what will happen if you don't, that's when we look at a diagnosis. Myth 3. Bipolar disorder is just mood swings. Everyone has mood swings. You might feel grumpy in the morning and happy by lunch. That is the human experience, not a disorder. Bipolar disorder involves distinct, prolonged episodes that are extreme shifts from a person's baseline. To be diagnosed with bipolar, you aren't just happy, you experience mania or hypomania. This is a state of dangerously high energy where you might feel invincible, stop sleeping entirely for days without feeling tired, or engage in risky behaviors, like spending your life savings or reckless driving. The low isn't just sadness, it is a crushing, often immobile depression. These cycles can last for weeks or months. It's a biological disruption in energy and activity levels, not just a reaction to having a bad day. Myth 4. Anxiety is just being stressed out. Stress and anxiety are cousins, but they are not the same thing. Stress is usually a response to an external trigger, a deadline at work or a fight with a partner. Usually, when the trigger goes away, the stress dissipates. Anxiety is different because it can exist without a current threat. It is the body's fight or flight system misfiring. Imagine the physical sensation of almost slipping on ice, that heart-pounding panic. Now imagine feeling that while sitting safely on your couch. That is an anxiety disorder. It involves persistent, excessive worry that doesn't shut off, often accompanied by physical symptoms like nausea, trembling, or chest tightness. It's not just overthinking. It's a physiological state of high alert that persists even when you are safe. Myth 5. Depression is the same as sadness. Sadness is a healthy, functional emotion. It is a temporary reaction to loss or disappointment. It flows, it peaks, and eventually, it subsides. You can usually still find moments of distraction or laughter even when you are sad. Clinical depression is different because of its duration and its depth. Clinically, we often look for symptoms persisting for at least 2 weeks. But more importantly, depression often includes anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. It's not necessarily crying, it's often numbness. It changes your biology, your sleep patterns break, your appetite changes, and your concentration shatters. Sadness is a feeling. Depression is a systemic illness that hijacks your ability to function. Myth 6. Depression isn't a real illness. This myth is dangerous because it implies depression is a choice or a character flaw. The reality is that we can see depression in the brain. Brain imaging studies have shown that people with severe depression often have different activity levels in the frontal lobe and the amygdala. It is a physiological condition involving neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Just like diabetes involves the body's inability to regulate insulin, depression involves the brain's inability to regulate mood. It manifests with physical symptoms, chronic pain, fatigue that sleep doesn't fix, and psychomotor retardation where you physically move and think slower. It is as real and biological as a broken leg or a heart condition. Myth 7. Everyone exposed to trauma will get PTSD. Trauma is unfortunately common, but post-traumatic stress disorder is actually the exception, not the rule. Following a terrifying event, like a car accident or a natural disaster, it is normal to have an acute stress reaction. You might have nightmares or feel jumpy for a few weeks. This is your brain processing the event. However, the vast majority of people are naturally resilient. They process the event, and their symptoms fade over time. PTSD is diagnosed only when those symptoms persist for months and interfere with life. It involves specific criteria like flashbacks, avoidance behaviors, and negative changes in mood. Assuming everyone who experiences a tragedy has PTSD ignores human resilience and can actually pathologize a normal recovery process. Myth 8. Grief involves the 5 stages in a specific order. We have all heard of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This model was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but here is the catch. She developed it to describe the experience of people who were dying, not the people left behind. Applying this rigid framework to grieving survivors is a myth. Grief is not a linear ladder you climb. It is messy. You might feel acceptance on Tuesday and anger on Wednesday. You might skip bargaining entirely. When people think they must follow these stages, they end up judging their own grief, thinking they are doing it wrong because they aren't angry yet. There is no right way to grieve, and there is no timeline. Myth 9. Bad parenting causes mental illness. For decades, psychology, including early Freudians, blamed mothers for everything. If you had schizophrenia, it was a cold mother. If you had autism, it was bad parenting. We now know this is scientifically inaccurate and harmful. Most mental illnesses arise from the biopsychosocial model. This means it is a combination of biology, your genetics, psychology, your temperament, and social factors, your environment. You can have excellent, loving parents and still inherit a genetic predisposition for bipolar disorder. Blaming parents creates unnecessary guilt and distracts from the actual management of the condition. While abuse or neglect certainly causes trauma, mental illness itself is rarely the sole result of parenting style. Myth 10. Medication is a magic cure. Conversely, there is a myth that popping a pill will instantly solve all mental health issues. The reality is much more complex. Research consistently shows that for most moderate to severe mental health issues, the gold standard of treatment is a combination of medication and psychotherapy. Medication can lift the biological fog. It can give you the energy to get out of bed, but it doesn't teach you coping skills. It doesn't change the negative thought patterns you've built up over years, and it doesn't fix your environment. Think of medication as a life jacket. It keeps you afloat, so you don't drown, but you still have to learn how to swim. Therapy is learning how to swim. And there you have it, 10 of the most persistent myths in mental health finally debunked. The biggest takeaway here is that mental health is complex. It's a mix of biology, environment, and psychology, and it rarely fits into the neat little boxes we see on social media. By understanding the science, we stop stigmatizing normal emotions and start taking real conditions seriously. Which of these myths surprised you the most? Or is there a common one I missed? Let me know down in the comments. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the human mind. Thanks for watching.